may or may not work. So forgive me if there's little technical things going on today. We had some ghosts in the machine this morning with the internet and stuff going around the building. We've been trying to sort all that out. So just pray for me as I preach, because now I'm completely distracted. Well, today is what I've been calling Vision Sunday. And I talked about this last week, talked about it Wednesday, and I'm excited about today because, listen, before even becoming your pastor, when we first talked about coming here and started looking at the church online and talking to the overseer, the Lord already began to speak to our hearts about River of Life, and we weren't really sure how to process that at the time, but we're just sort of mulling it all over, and it sort of makes sense now because over the past couple of months, as we've started talking about our vision for the future with the council and with you and on Wednesday nights, there's really been I don't know if you have felt it, I have felt it, a tremendous amount of excitement that's beginning to swell and grow, and really a lot of confirmation, even from the congregation and the church board, which has just really been encouraging, because, when a new pastor comes in, he's like, well, will they be on board with this? Are they going to follow me? Are they going to catch the vision? And you really have, and it's been really awesome. And so I want to begin today with a really familiar passage of Scripture that talks about the importance of vision for the future. You know this passage. I'm going to read it in a translation that I'm sure you're very familiar with, which will, and then I'm going to read it from several different translations, really help us get a better understanding. But first, the most familiar probably to you, which is from the King James Version, and it reads like this from Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18. Yeah, I don't know if it's working, guys. Yeah, you're gonna have to forward those for me, guys. Okay. So, all the work I did, forget it. Where there is no vision, it says, verse 18, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. And I'm going to add on the second verse because we almost never read this verse with it, but it's going to be relevant. A servant will not be corrected by words, for though he understand, he will not answer. The word translated perish here in the King James Version is the Hebrew word para. Go ahead and put that up there, which literally means to loosen. Now let me explain that. When that word para is used in the Old Testament, it means kind of like to let your hair down, right? To loosen your morals, to loosen your hair, to let it down. And here's where I think the King James Version actually doesn't quite get it exactly right, okay? Although the overall implication is still kind of the same, but listen to the way the English Standard Version puts it. It says it this way in verse 18. Where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. Keep that in your mind, cast off restraint. But blessed is he who keeps the law. By mere words a servant is not disciplined, for though he understands, he will not respond. And I think that makes a little more sense, because if people cast off restraint, or like the word implies in the King James Version, let their hair down too much, destruction usually follows. But now let's look at it in the New Living Translation, because I think it actually really nails it well. Again, verse 18. When people do not accept divine guidance, they run wild. But whoever obeys the law is joyful. Words alone will not discipline a servant. The words may be understood, but they are not heeded. Now, I love this wording because vision, as the King James puts it, and prophetic vision, as the English Standard Version puts it, are how God provides guidance to his people. It's through vision. That's how God provides guidance to us. So when we're asking for guidance from the Lord, what we're doing is we're seeking from him his vision for us, especially as it relates to us as a church, right? So this is why I really believe in having strong vision, as long as it comes from the Lord, of course. Okay? And it's also why I believe that God is an intentional God. God makes plans for his people, right? And he's not flying by the seat of his pants. And this is why I believe that people ought to respond by being intentional themselves when God speaks. Never flying by the seats of our pants or waiting to see what will develop on its own. That's called hope. It's not planning. It's not intention. And I believe that the Lord gives us vision. I believe that's what he's up to. It's part of him being intentional, being a planner. But then we respond to that vision by taking steps to go from here to there, to that next place that God wants to take us. And I really couldn't be more excited for where he's taking us today, in our next steps on our journey together. Okay, so now that we understand the importance of divine guidance, or what we're going to call vision for the rest of today, let's look at our vision and mission for our church through that lens as we continue. Because I believe this is from the Lord, because the whole council of elders has been in agreement and in unity about this ever since the very beginning of this whole conversation. And that's important to me as a pastor, because while there's times, and it's rare, but there's times when I might make a decision, that a leader needs to make in order to keep things moving. When it comes to like any kind of big spiritual decisions, though, I really value unity. More than almost anything else, I value unity. And with those types of decisions, big spiritual decisions especially, I've always chosen to not make them unless the whole council agrees, unless I sense unity and agreement. And if there's not total agreement, I'll always ask the council, I say, let's just table this for now, whatever that issue is, until we get clarity from the Lord and until that shows in our agreement together. And that's just how I prefer to work in most cases. Now, that doesn't mean I get pushed around. And I suppose there are exceptions to the rule at times when just something's got to get done. But if at all possible, my desire is to see unity. Because as I've said over and over and over again on Wednesday nights, if you've been here, nothing can stop a church moving in unity together. I believe that. And I believe the same thing for the council. And so with what I'm about to share, I've really sensed it. I've sensed this unity that I'm talking about surrounding this vision for our future. And if you've been to the website or you've been to the YouTube channel, you've probably already begun to see this pop up. The vision for River of Life Church. It's on our church sign now outside. And if you read the bottom, it says, your family plus our church equals one family. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today to explain it, but there's two parts to this. The first part is about family, and that's the word that God gave to me before I ever came here. And it simply means that we as a church exist to minister to the whole family, from the youngest to the oldest. Because we believe in the importance of families to the fabric of society, and that every person at every age is just as valuable and just as important in the body as all of the rest of them. And by the way, that should show in where we put our money and where we put our time and where we put our resources and where we put our energy. Family. The second component is what happens when your family joins with this local church family. We believe that in order to reach the world and to grow the kingdom and to grow the church, we need to reach families. And that when we add them to our church family, we become a better family. We become a stronger family. And we become a more vibrant family. Right? Which further means that we as a church community are better when we grow in the way of attracting families. We're stronger. We're better when we add children, especially to this family, because children are the future of the church. And listen, for the church to move forward beyond the next couple of decades, it's imperative that we invest big time, especially in children. Right? So God's giving us a strong vision for families and for children's ministry. And that's the vision. Right? And what follows that vision is our marching orders as a church. How do we do it? Well, that's called our mission statement, which is just a fancy way of saying how we intend to fulfill that vision of reaching and ministering to families and children so that their family plus our church equals one big family. Now that mission statement is simply walking with families on our journey with Jesus. That's our job. Our job is to walk with families at all ages and all stages on our shared journey with Jesus. And how we're going to fulfill the vision to add families to our church family will be to walk with them and minister to the entire family and prioritize two important things. Number one, attracting families with kids. Now that has to do, of course, with things like our kids program and nursery and our property and things like that. And number two, the second thing we're going to prioritize is building multi-generational ministries so that every member of the family that comes to our church is discipled to become fully devoted followers of Jesus. Now let's speak to point number one first, because that's the lion's share of what I feel led to share with you this morning on Vision Sunday. And as I get into this presentation, I want to ask you to do something. I want to ask you to have an open mind and have an open heart. Have an open mind, because many of the things that I'm going to share are going to look daunting. Some of them to you might not even look possible. But I believe that God is going to finance this vision, and that he will give us the energy and the strength and the resources and the people and the passion to complete it. So have an open mind and have an open heart, because it'll be tempting to react to some of what I'm about to share in a negative way, because it might feel like criticism at first. So I'm asking for your trust this morning. I'm going to ask you to believe me that none of what I'm about to share, I promise you, comes from a place of criticism. Quite the contrary. I believe that we need to view these things not as criticism or problems, but as opportunities. Opportunities for what? To fulfill the vision for the church. So let's look at these opportunities. But we have to start this morning from a place of honesty about what maybe needs some work, if we're going to make the changes needed to pursue the vision. We have to start from a place of honesty. Look, over the past few weeks, I've taken some time to just walk around the building. One night it was like midnight when I was up here checking for intruders. Or the other night when I was here at 12:30 a.m. Watering the trees. I just walked around the building, and I've been taking photos of things that I see around the property. And the reason I did this is because the things that people see when they look around, especially talking about our guests, they all communicate something. Everything people see communicates something about our priorities, about our values, and about our vision. Right? And a lot of it might be subconscious. But every detail about our church property, or the amount of resources that we put into a program, let's say like the kid program, shows people how much we care for them. For example, let me give you a couple of examples. I'm not putting pictures up yet. Hold off on those. This is why I wish I had my phone thing working. Daggone it. For example, if something's cluttered or messy around the church, it could feel to a guest that maybe nobody cares. Whereas if signage, for example, around the building, around the church, is bright and clear and in working order, it can make a guest feel welcomed and invited. If a bathroom's messy or in disrepair, it can leave a guest feeling distracted from all the other good things the church has to offer. Right? Have you ever gone to a restaurant and thought to yourself, the food's really good, but then you went into their bathroom? And then you thought to yourself, I'm not sure I'm coming back. Because if they can't keep this clean, I don't wonder about their kitchen. But listen, if it's clean and well-stocked, it can quietly and subconsciously communicate care and respect. So everything about us, everything about our property can profoundly impact a guest, okay? Especially guests with young children, right? Where things like safety and cleanliness and attention to detail and quality of care all have an impact on whether or not parents will want to entrust us with their children's discipleship. So let's look at some opportunities this morning to send the right messages to our guests. And I believe that as we embrace these things, if we'll embrace them, and we join together as a church family to push this vision forward, I believe the church is going to grow. And I believe that we're going to add souls to the kingdom, and that's what it's really all about. Who's on board with that idea? This morning we're going to talk about the Vision 2025 project. We're going to begin with this first photo here. Sometimes, no, go back a page. Sometimes we miss things. Have you ever done that around your house? Right? Something might be there so long, a mess or an object, that you just walk by it, you don't even see it anymore. And you forgot it's there. Okay? Like if you have a crooked picture in your house, and you've walked by it 100 times, and you forgot that it's crooked. Don't invite my wife over. She will fix it for you. Okay, so let's talk this morning about things we sometimes stop seeing, such as this next slide. That was on our front porch over there. It was there for at least 4 weeks that I know of, and I left it there, took a picture of it. I don't know why. Probably innocent, someone just set it down while they were sweeping something or whatever, and then it just got left there. But we forget to see these things. We stop seeing them. Go to the next one. This is up in the front of our building. There's an upside-down flower pot there. There probably was something planted in it at one time. I picked it up to see if there was a tree growing underground there. There wasn't. Next slide. This has been fixed. I don't know if you've noticed the bricks along our driveway, because I kept on harping on that. Thank you. You know who you are who don't like attention, so I'm not going to mention who it is. Move on to the next one. I don't know if you could see this, but there are spider webs that fill this entire front surface of the building. We did have the front of the building treated last week, and you'll probably notice there's bugs on the ground more and things like that. So we are addressing that problem. But it was just every time I was here at nighttime, they would make their webs to my truck. And so I would walk through them and get faces full of spider webs. And one night I saw this giant, big black creature. All right? Thankfully, no more. Next slide. This isn't one of the bathrooms. It's just a piece of wood. Not serving a purpose. I picked it up just to see if there's a hole under it. There's not. Just random debris. Next slide. Yeah. These are just things we stop seeing, like a little pile of cinder blocks, a little blob of concrete that just need to get busted up and thrown away. Okay? These represent a danger to children. So if you're thinking about this from a new parent's perspective, and he talked about taking the kids out towards where the yard is to play, and parents saw this, they would be concerned, some of them, about the safety of their children. Next slide. Now, these are just ugly. These are not lawn ornaments. They're not decorative in any way. These would look a lot better in an enclosure, like a gated enclosure, out of sight, not in the front of our building, right? We're not advertising for Rumpke. Next slide, right? Next slide, please. Okay, I don't know if you could see it, there's a hole. This siding's coming off right here. There's a big hole right here in our siding. I remember my very first visit here, that was the first thing I saw when I came to the building before I entered. It got my attention immediately. But some of us just walk by, we don't notice it. Might not even realize that was an issue. Matter of fact, I was talking to somebody a couple of months ago, and I mentioned it, and they're like, what, we're missing siding? I'm like, yeah, let's walk outside. You know what I mean? Yeah, look, there's siding missing. Next slide, please. Hey, Marv, there's a rock. We can use it to break into a window and rob the joint. Great idea, Harry. Yeah. Does anybody get the reference? Good. All right. Next slide, please. This may require some new asphalt or cement, right? But things like this can get swept up on a regular basis so that people aren't walking across gravel and things like that. It just doesn't look terrible. Okay, next slide. What does this say to new parents? This is the lights in the basement. If you go downstairs to the basement and you look up at any light, including the ones in the bathroom, this is what you're going to see. Billions of flies. Okay? You know what it says to me as a parent? Ew. All right, next slide, please. Okay. More random debris in another bathroom. And grime that's just pretty grimy around the edges and stuff like that. I don't know where the toilet brush went. Next slide, please. Okay. That's right there on the wall. Used to be a thermostat there. Next slide, please. Okay. This is out in our foyer, where those tables are out there. There is a drain in the floor. There's a water supply. Who'd like to see a coffee bar installed right there? The rest of you need the Lord to speak to your heart. Next slide. Okay. All right, now those are just things that maybe you just walk by, and you just don't notice them, right? You just don't, it's just kind of, we get on autopilot sometimes as human beings, and we just walk by things and we don't see them. Let's step outside, though, and look at some things that could be addressed. These are opportunities. This is the Church of God symbol, and it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be refreshed. The light bulb it might be fixed, I don't really know. I know we're having some electrical issues out there, but it's not currently being lit up. Next slide. New fencing, new ties, or a curb is needed here because this is our first impression. Since everybody uses that entrance there, the first thing they see when they come in is just kind of this, the fence is just kind of looking old and tattered, and it doesn't surround all of the units and stuff like that. The ties are falling apart and starting to rot. And so it's time to address all of that so that it's clean and neat and bright and tidy. Makes a good first impression. And we're also doing some landscaping right now, thanks to Betty, who's doing a fantastic job working hard on that. Next slide, please. A coat of paint goes a long way. Maybe we might want to paint this stairwell here. Next slide. All the railings are going to be painted because they look all rusty and weirdly colored. We're going to paint all those black because black disappears, and we're going to clean the brick right there, all that yellow stuff. Next slide. Okay, it'd be great if someday we could wash and treat this building. Not the car looks good. The building is what needs it, okay? We're talking about maybe doing a soft wash to that building, retreating it to something to make it look fresh. Next slide. Okay. Now here, you notice chain posts that aren't chained up anymore. They probably were at one time, I would imagine, but you've got these posts that run around the side of the building and run around the whole front of the building. You know, something as simple as some white plastic chain and anchors would look really nice if we filled that all in with chains. So they look like they have a purpose, because we're not going to pull the posts out, certainly. Next slide. Everybody knows, right? When you drive by at nighttime, you're like, there's two little white or two little blue lights, and that's it. I think it's probably time, because these are beyond repair, they're rotting and falling apart, to maybe put brand new crosses up and maybe light them from the ground instead so that we can actually change the light bulb when they burn out. Next slide. Okay. Now, I just want to talk about the men's room before we get to the next slide. Just hold on a second, just because I feel somewhat slighted. Right? I'm a little offended, because when nobody was here and I was here all by myself, I stepped into the ladies' room. Because I wanted to find out if their room looked as terrible as ours. And their ladies' room is fabulous. I'm going to tell you what, men, we're going to have men's night one of these nights, and when we're here, I'm going to invite you all into the ladies' room. It is really nice, right? And I would love to duplicate what's going on in the ladies' room in the men's room, but maybe with some Pennzoil signs and NASCAR paraphernalia or something. Make it look cool. Well, let's talk about how the men's room look right now, because it's a really, really important first impression. Let's go to the men's room. These are just the walls that are unfinished, drywall that needs work and things like that. Next slide. We're going to keep these ones moving. This is by the paper towel. There must have been something there at one time or another before this wall was all painted. Next slide. This is one of the men's urinals where it goes into the wall. It's a big repaired area. Next slide. Just gross. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to see this, you know. There is now a garbage bag over it because I couldn't take it anymore. It was stinking up the whole building. I was smelling it in my office 2 days ago. So I taped it off and put a garbage bag over. I'm done with that thing. It's disgusting. It won't flush. It smells like urine all the time. Next slide. Okay. Time to finish the job. We got a couple different kinds of flooring going on in there, which I get was just it was a temporary fix to a problem. So it's not a criticism. It's better than probably leaving it to whatever it was before. But it's time to finish the job. Next slide. Okay. Peekaboo. Now the ladies are behind doors. There's no peekaboo in the ladies' room. Okay? I've tried. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. I promise you I didn't. This isn't Target. I did not do that. Okay. All right. No. All I'm saying is no guy wants to be in a bathroom taking care of his business with that kind of hole and that kind of yuck. Next. Okay? Let's talk about the basement. It's really important to make a good first impression on who? Parents. Right? Families with children. Next slide. Okay? This door doesn't lock. Can you imagine? This is the bathroom downstairs, the boys' room specifically. And if you're sitting in there reading, you can't latch it. What happens if somebody else decides to come in? Especially a child who doesn't get the hint that when the door's shut, there might be somebody in there. Next slide. Okay. We want to store tables and chairs where they can't get knocked over and fall on kids. There's a lot of danger in the basement. If you walk down there, you're going to see a lot of dangerous things. Tables that could fall over, chairs that could fall off of things. That whole unit could get pulled over, I suppose. But it'd be better to not store things where children are actually having their program, because you can't watch all the kids all the time. Okay, next slide. We need to remodel and close off this kitchen like with a half wall, maybe, and a counter and a door, so the kids can't access things like knives, matches, things that are glass. The very first drawer right here, go ahead and check me on this if you don't trust me, has matches in it. The very first one. Okay? You don't want my pyromaniac son finding that. Next slide. Okay? Create a single-purpose kid space that communicates the importance of great kids ministry. You know, single use is really important when it comes to kids ministry. A parent wants to feel like this church values children. They value discipling my kids. They take it seriously. They've dedicated resources and they've dedicated money to making sure that my kids have a safe, quality place for kids ministry to occur. It's not just some afterthought, which is what we communicate when it's a multi-purpose kind of a setup, right? So even though we may use it for multi-purpose at times, it always gets restored back to single-use kid space when we're done, including these new ceiling tiles that need to happen, because all the ceiling tiles are sagging and falling apart and look really bad, and so it's time to replace all those ceiling tiles. Next slide, please. There is so much more. I didn't want to overwhelm you. I actually only showed you half of the pictures that I took. I have another 30 or 40 pictures that I took around the property, and I thought, you know, we'll be here all day if I show all of these pictures, and some people might get upset and a little bit overwhelmed by it, but there is so much more to be done around the property. I would encourage you just to walk around. Just walk around. Noah and we had a really fun time. We were here a few weeks ago, and we got into this back room over here, and we found some stuff, like, I don't know, from the 70s that hasn't been touched probably since the 70s. And we began to clean it out and get rid of a bunch of junk and filled up a quarter of a dumpster with all the junk that we took out of there. And there's still things that need to get taken care of, but that's what happens when we stop seeing things. So walk around the building. See things. My wife's really good at this. She sees things from a guest perspective, always. And she's always telling me all the things that I need to fix around. I know that's a lot of stuff. I want you to keep in mind that a lot of times, when we've been around something for so long, we can subconsciously kind of just walk by that same issue 100 times. And we just stop seeing it. And it's pretty normal, right? But that's when God often brings a new set of eyes that can see things from a fresh perspective and maybe catch some of these opportunities for improvement that have gotten missed over the years. Right? And I really believe that that's part of what God is doing right now at River of Life by bringing Gretchen and I here, because from our very first visit, we began to see all of these opportunities. And through that, I think God has started to pour out fresh vision for things like kids ministry. Right? Which is why, she won't really adjust your pictures when she comes over your house. But I think it's why God gave her to me. Because it's a gift. She just sees stuff. And she cares. She cares about how this stuff's going to make a guest feel. She cares about what it communicates to families with children. And she's not being judgmental. If you ever think she is, she's not. She genuinely is excited to make improvements that will attract and help retain guests to our church. But Gretchen can't do it all. I can't do it all. Neither can we keep leaning too much on the few who are kind of doing it all. Okay? So here's what I want to invite you. To join the effort and to see this vision, to embrace it. To add families to the kingdom. To add families to the River of Life. I believe that vision can be fulfilled. That it can be accomplished. And by the way, it's about way more than just our building. It's about way more than the property, but we're going to start there because that's the easiest part. Building leadership and developing programs, and that's a little bit harder, and that takes a lot more time. But we're going to start here with the property and with our building because it's going to take the most resources to make that happen, right? As I've gone through the photos, you've undoubtedly seen some areas, or maybe even thought to yourself, I agree, that needs fixing. Have you thought that? Or you might have thought to yourself, oh, maybe I can do that. Right, I can come over here, I could sand that little spot in the wall and paint it. That's no big deal. Or maybe you thought to yourself, I could donate something to that project. Right? Maybe the paint or the resources that we need. Well, that's a good place to start, because let me just tell you, as we've had to bear the expense of moving my family to Ohio from Washington State, which was not cheap, okay? We did it the cheapest we could, but it's not cheap. And we've had to renovate the parsonage again. We've been extremely budget conscious, and we've done most of the work ourselves. But it costs money. Couple that with the reality that after 5 months with no pastor, the church is now paying a pastor's salary again. Okay? Wasn't an expense you had to deal with there for a while. And it means that the church has had to spend quite a bit of money in the past few months. And it's been chipping away at our reserves and making Cheryl mad at me. Not really. She's not really mad at me. I mean, we're still in good financial shape. I don't say that to scare you or make you concerned. But listen, in order to do these projects, here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to strain the church budget if we don't have to. That's important to me. In fact, I think it's important to strengthen our reserves, to recoup our reserves, so that we can consider some bigger projects down the road, because there's always a next there to go to. Right now, we're in the midst of God wanting to take us from a place that has maybe lacked a little vision and maybe walked by some things that need improvement to accomplish all of those things. That's our next destination, so that we can attract families with children to the church and create a wonderful children's program. But I believe there's next places to go after that, even bigger places. And so here's where I'm asking for you to embrace this vision. Because remember, nothing can stop a church moving in unity together. Nothing. And I've taken these photos and I've bound them in a book. I have them in a binder, okay? And I'm going to put it in the hospitality desk, or on top of the hospitality desk out there, or what I like to call the hospitality kiosk, but that keeps confusing people. But I'm going to put it on the hospitality kiosk. It's bound in a 3-ring binder, and what I'm asking you to do is I want you not to walk by it. I want you to look at it, and I want you to look at it regularly. And I want you to ask the Lord when you look at it, where can I personally take on a project and get it done or contribute to it? I mean, maybe you don't have carpentry skills, but you can paint something. Or maybe you're not a painter. You don't want me painting. I would rather have a root canal than paint. But you can clean something. You can remove something. Or perhaps you're not in physical shape to do any of that. But you're a good team builder. Maybe you could help organize other people to create a team to do a project. Or perhaps none of those are your forte, but you're in a financial position to make a contribution to a project. Listen, I know there's some of us, I guess I don't know this. I'm assuming there's some of us who could give $5,000 to a project, or any amount to get a project done. Or perhaps you have the actual resources. Maybe you've got the wood or the drywall or the paint, whatever, to get these projects done. Or maybe somebody here can buy the siding so that we can redo the siding in the entryway of the building. Or buy the ceiling tiles to redo all the basement ceiling. Or maybe someone can donate new toilets or help build a cafe in the foyer. There are so many opportunities just with what I've shown you here. And I hope you hear me when I say this. It is going to take all of us to make it happen. See, but that's the powerful thing about vision. See, we can make appeals, and maybe some of this stuff will get done. But I believe if we all catch the vision, we all hear the direction of the Lord in this, we won't be able to say no. Because the Holy Spirit will move in our hearts and just to burn with this vision that he's given. And that's my prayer. Lord, set our hearts ablaze with this vision, your church. Because if that happens, instead of me just begging you or making appeals or asking for help, and we all contribute as we're able, either with finances or resources or our abilities, here's what I believe. I believe we can knock all of this stuff out well before Christmas and be ready for all the guests who are going to come for the holidays. So to help with that, starting this week, starting this Wednesday night, all of the offerings that come in through the Wednesday night offering are going to be designated for the Vision 2025 project. This is not your tithes. Why don't you give those on Sunday? Okay. But on Wednesday night, we are specifically asking that you give above your tithe special offerings to go toward Vision 2025 project. Maybe you'll decide that from now on, every Wednesday, I'm going to give this amount until these projects are done. That's a great way to do it. But we're going to just ask you not to take away from your normal tithes. Okay, this is a special ongoing offering for this vision project, and that's an important distinction I need to make. This is an opportunity for you to invest in the kingdom through special giving, and I really believe that God also wants to use it to help all of us become more generous givers. That's just a little side effect of it all. Because when we take that seriously, well, here's what will happen. Your family plus our church equals one family. God is going to bring new families to River of Life. That's what I believe is going to happen. Because we're effectively ministering and sending the right messages to the whole family, especially their kids. Now, can I just be honest with you? Young parents especially will pick a church based on the children's ministry. They may not like the worship. They may not love the sermons. But a lot of families will pick a church purely because they want a church that will do a good job with their kids, where their kids are prioritized, and the program is quality, that people seem to genuinely care, and, above all, it's safe. And I believe they're going to come. Because the facility says, we care about you. Our property says, you are welcome here, and you're invited in. And here's what I believe will be the result if we stay committed to this vision. Families are going to come back a second time. Families are going to come back a third time. And they're going to eventually join the church. Salvations, baptisms, and baby dedications will become weekly occurrences. And the church will never again have to worry about money. Here's what I see happening at River of Life. We're probably going to have to expand to 2 services. We might build a new facility, who knows? I know that's been talked about in the past. But God wasn't ready to take us there yet. I believe a new youth group will be needed for student ministry here at River of Life. I believe every member here will be a minister. I believe some of you are going to go through CAMS and become pastors, receive ministry credentials. And what's most exciting to me, I see the church becoming alive with the sound of kids, which will in turn fill every corner of this church with great joy and anticipation. That's my favorite sound. That's why whenever babies make noise in church, I always tell parents, don't take them out. I don't mind it. It's the most joyful sound in the world to me. I believe God is going to use us to bring whole families into the kingdom and to pave the way to hand off the ministry to the next generation. Folks, that's the vision for River of Life. That's the vision I believe God has given me. It's the vision that I believe our council has readily embraced. It's what I sense people getting excited about. And as it begins today, as we commit to the Vision 2025 project and to walk with families on their journey with Jesus, I want to wrap up with something special today. I would like us this morning to make an expression of our commitment to the vision that God's calling us to. And I know about half of you right now are thinking, ooh, he's about to take up another offering. No, you're wrong. Here's what I want you to do all over the sanctuary. If you're physically able, if you're not, don't worry about it. Stay in your seat. If you're physically able right now, I want you to stand. We're going to make an expression together as a family.